Imagine the night, not just dark. Arctic night, where the darkness has weight, texture, a temperature of -15. November 2002, Kodiak Island, Alaska. The village of Karluk clings to the western shore like a mollusk to a rock. 150 souls, no roads, accessible only by water or air if a seaplane dares in such fog. November the 14th, 11 in the evening. 8 men leave the village dock in motorboats, armed. Harpoons for whales, things that pierce a meter of blubber straight through. Fishing knives with blades like short swords. 30-06 rifles, the ones taken against grizzly bears when you encounter them too close on the shore. The fog swallows the boats. The sound of engines dissolves in the roar of the wind and the splash of waves. The Bering Sea in November is not a body of water, but a living creature with the temperament of a psychopath, unpredictable, cruel, unforgiving of mistakes. By dawn on the 15th, 12 bodies scattered across 18 square miles of rocky coastline. Imagine a territory the size of a small city, only instead of streets, sharp rocks instead of houses, icy water instead of people, dead fishermen. All adult men, from 19 to 53 years old, killed with harpoons, stabbed, shot. Some drowned in water at 3 degrees, tied to anchors, sent to the bottom like in medieval pirate legends. Only this isn't a legend. This is Alaska in the early 2000s, the 21st century, the era of the internet and GPS. The U.S. Coast Guard would later call it the most brutal fishermen's massacre in Alaska's history. The phrase sounds almost absurd. Are there non-brutal massacres? But no, this one truly stood out. The planning, the scale, the cold-blooded execution. The perpetrators, the crew of the crab boat Northern Star. The captain, his 3 sons, 2 nephews, 2 crew members. They operated like a marine assault team, methodically, by list. House by house, dock by dock, boat by boat. And the reason? Here's where the story gets truly horrifying. Not drugs, not territorial war, not ancient generational blood feud. 3 stolen commercial king crab fishing licenses, total value $720,000, and one man's belief that maritime justice supersedes federal law. $720,000 sounds like a lot? In the world of Alaska 2002, it's not just money. It's the difference between survival and bankruptcy, between feeding a family and starvation, between existence and disappearance. Karluk that winter, a ghost of itself. Once in the 70s, the golden years of the fishing industry, 400 residents, prosperity, hope. Now, 150 and shrinking. The commercial fishing industry in freefall after the feds introduced the quota system in the 90s. It sounded pretty. Individual transferable quotas, caring for fish population conservation. In practice, large corporations buy up licenses. Small independent fishermen are squeezed out of business. The price of a license skyrocketed from $50,000 in '90 to $240 in 2002. Unemployment in fishing villages, 55%. Men who worked their whole lives at sea now sit at home. Social Security checks barely cover heating and food, where a gallon of milk costs $8. The air that night smelled of salt water, rotting seaweed, diesel fuel from the boats. And something else, a premonition of disaster that survivors would later swear they felt. The fog was so dense that nothing was visible beyond 6 meters. But in Karluk, they're used to fog. Fog is a permanent resident. It hides, protects, witnesses. That night, the fog became an accomplice. Disclaimer. Listeners, this story contains descriptions of real violence and human cruelty. All events are documented in federal archives. I'm telling it not for sensation, but to understand how ordinary people turn into killers when systems collapse around them. If you're ready to hear this story to the end, leave a like, subscribe. But I warn you, there will be more answers than questions, and moral clarity will dissolve in the same fog that covered Karluk that November night. Let's start with the captain. Pete Hansson, captain of the Northern Star, the main organizer of the massacre, was born in '62 in a Norwegian family on the Lofoten Islands. You understand what that's like? Lofoten, an archipelago beyond the Arctic Circle, where in winter the sun doesn't rise for months, where the sea is not just a profession, but the only reality, where children learn to walk on deck before on land. Pete's father, a cod trawler captain, grandfather, captain, great-grandfather, captain. The line of captains goes back so far that family memory loses count of generations. In '79, when Pete is 17, his father drowns in a storm. The body isn't found, a common story for fishermen. The sea doesn't always return what it takes. 85, Pete emigrates to Alaska. 23 years old, not a word of English, $700 in his pocket, and a Norwegian captain's diploma. First years working on others' vessels. 91, buys his own crab boat with a partner, on credit with insane interest. Names it Northern Star after the star that guided Vikings across oceans. Marries Ingrid, daughter of a Danish fisherman from Kodiak. They have 3 sons, Eric, Magnus, Lars. All 3 boys grow up on the deck of the Northern Star. School? Homeschooling between seasons? Friends? The ship's crew? Childhood? Look, childhood is what happens between hauling crab pots from 300 meters deep in water where you survive a maximum of 3 minutes if you fall in. Neighbors describe Pete as quiet, methodical, obsessed with the sea. Doesn't drink, a rarity among Alaskan fishermen, doesn't smoke, doesn't spend on entertainment. Every cent back into the ship. Every free hour, reading nautical charts, studying crab migrations, planning the next season. With the crew, fair but demanding, pays slightly above market average, shares profits honestly. But on deck, a dictator, his word is law. Argue with the captain, get off at the next port, fair winds. A maritime tradition as old as the sailing fleet. On a ship there's one god and it's the captain. By 2002, Pete is 60. Face like a map of the Bering Sea. Every wrinkle a storm, every scar a wave that nearly killed him. Hands, knots of tendons and old fractures, back bent from arthritis earned over decades on icy decks. But eyes, bright, sharp, the color of that very sea that took his father, owns the Northern Star fully now. Paid off the partner in '97. The ship is worth $900,000 on paper, but the bank lien is $300,000. Has 3 king crab licenses, each bought with years of savings. These licenses, essentially his retirement plan. Sell when too old for the sea, retire, pass the ship to eldest son Eric. The plan was good, reasonable, traditional, and now the victims. The Mendoza family, Carlos, 47, Pete's main target, the center of the whole catastrophe. Born in Texas, Mexican heritage, moved to Alaska in '89 for fishing work. Bought a small crab boat, Lorena, in '94, worked independently. Wife Maria, 4 children from 12 to 22. Carlos's brothers, Diego 29, Ramon 34, also fishermen, crew on Lorena. Mother Rosa lives with Carlos, cooks for the crew, mends nets, prays when they're at sea. Descriptions of Carlos vary sharply depending on who you ask. Friends, a good guy, generous, always helps with boat repairs. Competitors, arrogant, doesn't respect others' territory, cuts corners on safety. Feds later, possibly involved in minor smuggling, selling licenses he had no right to sell. Key point, fall of 2002 in October, Carlos suddenly starts crabbing in zones he didn't work before. Zones assigned to Pete by licenses. When Coast Guard checks, Carlos shows documents. 3 licenses, look legit, numbers match. Wait, Pete's licenses? Confusion, bureaucracy. Federal Fisheries Agency in Anchorage promises to sort it out. Will take time, 6, maybe 8 weeks. While they sort, Carlos keeps fishing. Pete goes to the sheriff. Sheriff, one person for all of Kodiak Island. Office in Kodiak, 60 miles away. Tells Pete, federal jurisdiction, he can't interfere. Wait for the feds to decide. Pete goes to Carlos directly. Meeting in Karluk bar, witnesses later testify, voices raised. Pete accuses Carlos of stealing licenses. Carlos says licenses bought honestly from a broker in Anchorage has papers. Papers. Both have papers. Someone's lying or the system is so broken it issued the same licenses twice. While feds dawdle, the crab season goes on. Every day Carlos at sea, money Pete loses. Every full crab pot, profit that should be Pete's. Bank calls, ship line payment overdue. Explain the situation, they say. Understand. But credit is credit. November begins. Weather worsens. Window for safe fishing closes. Soon, winter storm season. Can't go to sea until March. That window, Pete's last chance to save the year. Last chance to avoid bankruptcy. Last chance to protect everything built over 37 years at sea. Only Carlos in his zones, with his licenses, with his future. And no one helps. October 2002 turns into November, and Karluk watches the conflict escalate with that mounting tension that precedes catastrophes. You see, small, isolated communities, like hermetically sealed containers. Pressure builds, no outlet, explosion inevitable, just a matter of time. November 8th, Friday. Pete confronts Carlos at the diesel station in the port. Witnesses, 4 dock workers, station owner, say Pete looked strange, calm, too calm. Looked at Carlos not with rage, but something else. Assessment. Like a surgeon looks at a patient before surgery. Like a butcher at a carcass. Carlos, on the other hand, loud, confident, shouts across the dock, "Your licenses, old man? Show me originals, not copies. Mine are original, bought honestly." Laughs. Mistake. Don't laugh at a 60-year-old Norwegian captain who spent 43 years at sea and recently buried his wife from alcoholism she drank to cope with the anxiety of waiting while he was in storms. Pete doesn't answer. Turns, leaves. Dock workers later say, saw his face. The decision was made. Right there, at that moment, by the diesel station under the gray November sky. November 9th, Saturday, Pete calls a family council on the Northern Star. Present, 3 sons, 2 nephews, 2 Danish crew members. Meeting lasts 4 hours. None of those present ever told what exactly was discussed, but the results would become clear in 5 days. Sven, the youngest nephew, later in court. Uncle Pete talked about maritime justice, about how on land there are laws, but at sea the captain is the law, about how if land laws can't protect the crew, the captain must protect himself, about Viking traditions, about how thieves at sea were punished with death because theft at sea is murder. Steel supplies means doom the crew to starvation. Steel navigation means doom to loss. Twisted logic, but with internal consistency. In Pete's world, on an isolated island, where the nearest police are 60 miles across dangerous waters, where feds promise to sort it out in 2 months, but the season ends in 2 weeks, where the bank doesn't wait and the family starves, maritime justice is the only available. November 10th, Sunday, Pete buys extra ammunition at the Kodiak hunting store. Cashier remembers, took 230-06 rounds. When asked why so much, answered, deer hunting season, stocking up. Deer on Kodiak Island exist, story plausible. November 11th, Monday. Northern Star crew prepares the ship for sailing. Neighbors notice nothing unusual. Routine prep for fishing, check engine, load ice, repair pots, but also load what isn't needed for crabbing. Rifles, whaling harpoons, large fishing knives. One of the wives sees, asks why weapons. Magnus answers, polar bears lately approaching shore fishing zones. November 12th, Tuesday, Pete visits each of Carlos's crew members' homes, methodically, one by one, under pretext of peace, want to talk, resolve without conflict. Maria Mendoza later. He came, asked where Carlos is fishing today, which zones planned tomorrow, seemed polite, calm. I told him, thought he wanted to avoid collision at sea, divide territory. She told the schedule, where every Mendoza family boat would be the next 3 days, who sleeps on ships at sea, who returns to shore to sleep, who will be alone, who with a partner, tactical reconnaissance, professional. Victims themselves provided the map of their own destruction. November 13th, Wednesday, daytime. Northern Star heads to sea, officially night crab fishing, planned to return by dawn 14th. On board 8 men, Pete, 3 sons, 2 nephews, 2 crew, armament hidden under tarps. Night from 13th to 14th, sea calm for November, rarity. Visibility limited by fog but waves small. Navigation possible by GPS. Radio works clear. Coast Guard later intercepted radio logs that night. 11:30 p.m. Northern Star contacts Lorena, Carlos's ship. Pete asks position under pretext of coordinating fishing zones. Carlos answers, gives exact coordinates. 20 minutes later, Northern Star approaches. 2 boats side by side in the night sea. Distance 30 feet. Carlos on deck with brother Diego. See silhouettes on Northern Star, wave, standard greeting between fishermen. Response, flash of a shot. Carlos falls, bullet to the chest. Diego shouts, rushes to the wheelhouse for radio. Second shot, third, fourth. Northern Star pulls alongside. Pete's crew jumps over, with harpoons, with knives. Diego, wounded but alive, tries to defend with a fishing gaff. Eric, Pete's eldest son, kills him with a harpoon to the gut. Death not instant, harpoon missed heart. Agony lasts minutes, left bleeding on deck. Lorena, radio silent. No response to Coast Guard call. Ship drifts. Next target, Ramon, third brother, crabbing 2 miles north, alone on small boat. Northern Star finds him by GPS coordinates Maria unwittingly provided. Approaches in dark. Ramon thinks friends approaching. Realizes mistake when too late. Third target, Mendoza home on shore. Carlos told Maria he'd sleep at sea, but other family men, uncles, cousins, nephews, sleep on shore. Pete's crew splits. 4 stay on ship as ops base, 4 land on shore. Time, 3 a.m. 14th November. Village sleeps. Dogs bark, but dogs in Alaska bark constantly. At wind, at wildlife, at shadows. No one pays attention. Mendoza home isolated, half-mile from village center. Old structure, wood, no insulation. 4 Mendoza men sleeping inside. Pete's crew bursts in. The slaughter lasts 8 minutes. What makes a person capable of killing? Not in battle, not in self-defense, but methodically, cold-bloodedly, going from victim to victim like a lumberjack felling trees. Psychologists argue, criminologists write dissertations. But there, that night on Kodiak Island, the answer was simpler and more horrifying. Belief. Belief that it was just, that it was necessary, that the captain was protecting the crew the only way available. Mendoza home, 3:06 a.m. Pete's crew burst through unlocked back door. In Alaska villages, doors rarely locked. Who to fear? Bears. They don't open doors. First to wake, Juan, Carlos's uncle, 53, disabled with damaged leg from fishing accident 10 years ago. Sleeps on couch in living room. Hears footsteps. Thinks Carlos back from sea early. Opens eyes. Sees silhouette in doorway. Not Carlos. Too tall. Too broad. Magnus, Pete's middle son, 28, grown man, with 30-centimeter fishing knife. Juan doesn't get to scream. Bedroom down the hall. Pedro, 24, Carlos's nephew, worked on Lorena seasonally. Miguel, 29, cousin. Hears struggle sounds. Jump up. Pedro grabs baseball bat by bed, kept for protection from drunk neighbors if needed. Runs into hall, meets Lars, Pete's youngest son, 22, rifle in hands, shot in confined space, deafening. Pedro's ears ring, but bullet misses. Lars nervous, aims poorly. Second bullet? No. Hit to shoulder. Pedro falls, bat drops. Miguel tries to escape through bedroom window. Alaska windows small, heat conservation, gets stuck halfway. Olaf, Pete's nephew, catches up. Harpoon through back. Not whaling, fishing, smaller for halibut, but sufficient. Miguel dies hanging in window. Found that way in morning. Fourth in house. Esteban, 15, youngest. Carlos's nephew came from Texas on vacation, dreamed of becoming fisherman like uncle. Hides in closet, hears everything, screams, shots, smell of blood and gunpowder. Pete's crew searches house, finds him. Eric, eldest son, opens closet door, sees boy huddled in corner shaking. Pause, long, Esteban later testifies, seemed eternity. Eric looks at him, boy sees hesitation in eyes, then Eric says, "Not a man, leave witness?" Pete's voice from living room, "Only adults, boy didn't participate." Eric closes door, leaves Esteban alive, the only life spared that night. Crew leaves house. Time, 3:16 a.m., 10 minutes from entry to exit, 4 victims inside, 1 outside in window. Next target, docks. There, 2 of Carlos's helpers sleep on their boats, prefer sleeping at sea, rocking a lullaby for people raised on water. Francisco, 32, sleeps in cabin of boat Santa Maria. Small vessel, 8 meters, old but reliable. First hit to hull wakes him, thinks, wave, though sea calm. Second hit, third, someone attacking ship, runs on deck. Northern Star alongside, crew jumping over. Francisco master hand-to-hand, prison past in Mexico, street fights, harsh survival. Knocks first attacker with fist to jaw, second with kick to knee, But four of them, him alone, shirtless, unarmed. Thorsten, Pete's second nephew, kills Francisco with fishing gaff to throat. Death quick, carotid artery severed. Blood fountains on deck mixes with seawater splashing between planks. Next boat, Antonio, 41, fishing veteran, 20 years at sea. Hears noise from Santa Maria, realizes something terrible happening. Tries to start engine, cast off. Engine old, finicky. Doesn't start first try, second, third. Northern Star approaches. Antonio grabs flare gun, signal for distress, shoots into air. Red flash illuminates fog, signal visible for miles. Helps? No. Village sleeps. Those who see think Coast Guard drills or drunk fishermen fooling around. Pete's crew boards Antonio's boat. He fights. Boxing past, amateur but talented. Breaks nose of Jens, one Danish crew. Knocks out tooth of Knut, second Dane. But harpoon against fists, uneven fight. Antonio impaled, doesn't die immediately. Agony. Lars finishes with shot. Mercy? Or just impatience? Antonio's boat sunk. Open seacocks, vessel slowly submerges. Body sinking with boat? Symbolism? Or just attempt to hide evidence? Time, 4:20 a.m., 8 victims. Pete's crew returns to Northern Star. Pete does roll call. All alive. Magnus wounded. Cut on arm from broken glass when bursting into house. Shallow, wrap with rag. Pete gives command to Bering Sea, clear zones where other Mendoza workers fish. Info from Maria indicated 4 more boats at sea. All must be eliminated. The hunt continues. Dawn, 15th November. Gray, cold, foggy. Sun doesn't break through. Just darkness slowly turns to grayness. On Kodiak Island, they call it not sunrise, but diminishing of night. 4 boats found, one by one, methodically, by known GPS coordinates. Resistance? Minimal. Fishermen don't expect attack. Who attacks at sea? Pirates? In Bering Sea 2002? Last victim, Jorge, 19, youngest in Carlos's crew. First season on water, recently from Texas. American dream, earn at sea, return with money, buy truck, marry girl from hometown. Dies tied to anchor, drowned in icy water. Medieval execution, pirate tradition, maritime justice in Pete's understanding. By 6 a.m., 12 dead. Northern Star returns to Karluk. Crew moors at usual dock, wash deck with seawater. Blood washes off easily, salt cleanses. Pete goes home. Breakfast, scrambled eggs, coffee, bread. Sons and crew too. No one speaks of the night. Eat in silence, go to bed. As if nothing happened. As if ordinary fishing night. As if 12 people not dead scattered across 18 square miles of Arctic coast. But the ocean remembers. The ocean always remembers. 7:30 a.m. 15th November. Maria Mendoza wakes alone in bed. Carlos should have returned by 6, promised breakfast home. Strange. Not like him to be late without radio call. Calls, Lorena. Silence, static, no answer, worry not yet panic. Radio sometimes glitches, batteries die. Waves flood antenna. 1,000 explanations. But maternal instinct, ancient thing, works on level where logic powerless. Something wrong. 8 o'clock. Maria goes to docks, check if boat returned. Fog dissipates slowly. Visibility maybe 50 meters. Reaches pier where Lorena usually moors. Spot empty. Goes to Antonio's boat, also gone. To Francisco's Santa Maria. Absent. Strange. 3 boats not returned. No storm. Weather calm. Why all delayed? Returns home. Heart pounding now, not from hill climb. Approaches door, notices, open, ajar. In Alaska, November, no one leaves door open. Heat escapes, fuel bill ruinous, enters, smell, metallic, sweetish, familiar to anyone who's gutted fish or deer. Blood, lots of blood. Living room, Juan on floor in puddle, eyes open, staring at ceiling, not blinking. Maria screams. First, short, abrupt. Second, long, piercing fog better than siren. Runs to bedroom. Pedro on hall floor. Dead. Bedroom, empty. But window. Miguel hanging, half outside, half inside. Harpoon through back sticks out like flagpole. Third scream sticks in throat. Maria falls to knees. Vomits. Shock. Closet in bedroom corner opens. Esteban crawls out. Alive, shaking. Can't speak. Jaw clenched in spasm. Hugs aunt. They rock on floor surrounded by death. Time indeterminate. Could have sat a minute. Could an hour. Trauma distorts perception. Finally, Maria finds strength to move, leads Esteban to neighbors, knocks on Larsson's door. Norwegian family, not related to Hansson's, lived in Karluk 20 years. Olga Larsson opens door, sees faces, pale, in shock. Blood on Maria's clothes. Call Coast Guard by satellite phone. Nearest station, Kodiak. Duty officer listens to Olga's garbled account. Murders, many dead. Karluk village. Come immediately. Standard protocol. Coast Guard doesn't handle murders, that's sheriff or FBI jurisdiction, but isolated village, multiple victims, possible active shooter, launch emergency response. Coast Guard helicopter lifts off 9:45, reaches Karluk 10:20. On board, 4 officers, medic, Kodiak Borough Sheriff David Cole agreed to fly along. Helicopter circles village, from above, quiet, idle, houses scattered on hills, smoke from chimneys, boats at docks. No signs of massacre. Land at school, only flat spot big enough. Maria meets, leads to home. Sheriff Cole, 30-year veteran, seen drownings, bear victims, bodies after months at sea. Thought nothing shocks. Enters Mendoza home, stops. Scale of slaughter exceeds all his experience. This not family drama, not heat-of-moment killing. This execution, organized, methodical, almost military. Officers fan out through village, find more bodies. At docks, bloodied decks on 2 boats. 3rd boat found sunk in shallows, Antonio inside, tied to wheel. By noon count, 8 bodies on shore. 4 boats missing at sea. Coast Guard radio starts coordinated search. Helicopters and cutters comb the waters. By 3 p.m., find La Reina drifting. Carlos and Diego on deck. Dead at least 10 hours. Body temp, rigor mortis, liver mortis. By sunset, 3 more bodies found at sea on different boats. By midnight, 12th and last. Horror surfaces when anchor snags underwater reef, rope breaks. 12 victims confirmed, all men, all linked to Mendoza family, all killed in 8-hour span. FBI notified. Special Agent Jennifer Stone assigned lead investigator. Arrives evening 15th from Anchorage. Woman 42, 17 years in bureau, specialization, organized crime and mass killings. Saw Oklahoma, Waco, Columbine. Hardened professional like Arctic ice. But Karluk shocks even her. Scale, 12 in one night. Coordination, multiple locations attacked synchronously. Brutality, harpoons, knives, drownings, targets, all one group, no random victims. Organization and brutality usually don't mix. Organized killers use firearms, quick, clean, efficient. Disorganized use knives, close, personal, chaotic. This crime, both categories at once. Planning organized, execution savage. Stone starts interviews. First, Esteban, sole surviving witness to house attack. Boy traumatized, barely speaks. Psychologist works hours, gradually, details. Several attackers, spoke English with accent. Scandinavian accent? Esteban unsure. Heard name, Eric. Someone yelled, "Eric, hurry!" Name Eric in village of 150, rare, but exists. 3 people. 1, 80-year pensioner, obviously not participant. Second, 13-year schoolboy. Third, Eric Hansson, 32, eldest son of Captain Pete Hansson. Stone checks Hansson family, finds conflict with Mendoza from sheriff reports. 2 complaints from Pete on Carlos month before murders, claims of license theft, federal investigation not yet complete, motive exists, suspect identified, time to act, November 16th, morning. Special Agent Stone at Hansson's home, 1-story structure, wood darkened by salt and time, metal roof rusting. Ordinary Alaskan fisherman's house, nothing notable. No signs that here lives organizer of state's largest fisherman massacre. Escort, 6 FBI agents flown from Anchorage, 4 Coast Guard officers, Sheriff Cole. Armed for resistance, Stone knocks. Door opened by Pete Hansson, calm, sober, in clean flannel shirt and jeans. Looks like farmer greeting neighbors, not person surrounded by federal agents. Mr. Hansson, FBI, we have a warrant for search and questions regarding events November 14th, 15th. May I enter? Pete nods, steps back, gestures inside. No surprise, no fear. As if expecting visit. Inside, 3 sons, 2 nephews, 2 crew. All home, all calm. Sitting at kitchen table, drinking coffee. Like family breakfast. Stone senses. Something off. Criminals usually nervous when police burst in. Run, resist, or at least look tense. These, relaxed, too relaxed, Either innocent or psychopaths are so convinced of righteousness that arrest not threat. You know why we're here? Pete nods. Mendoza. Not question, statement, knows. 12 people killed, all linked to Mendoza family. Your conflict with Carlos documented. Where were you night of 14th? At sea, on ship, crabbing. Crew can confirm? Pete gestures to sons and people at table. Whole crew here, ask. Stone questions each, story identical from all. Left at midnight 14th, crabbed till dawn 15th, back by 6 a.m. No encounters, no incidents, two identical, rehearsed. When witnesses tell truth, details vary. Memory imperfect, perception subjective. When lying, memorize one version, repeat word for word. May I inspect your ship? Of course. Pete even smiles, faint, barely noticeable. Confidence of man convinced, no evidence found. FBI team goes to docks. Northern Star moored at usual pier. Outside, clean, deck washed, gear neatly stowed, crab pots stacked. But Stone sees details, deck too clean. Wood usually covered in algae, salt streaks, fish fat stains. This, freshly washed, faint bleach smell under sea scent. Forensics work 4 hours, hundreds of samples. Cabin, deck, hold, wheelhouse. Spray luminol, chemical that glows in UV on blood even after washing. Deck lights up like Christmas tree. Blood stains everywhere. Washed, but traces remain. Luminol not fooled. Blood soaks into wood, stays even after bleaching. Additional evidence, tooth fragment stuck between planks. DNA later shows Antonio, one victim. Hair found in hold, Diego. Bullet lodged in bulkhead, 30-06 caliber, matches Hansson's rifles. Weapons confiscated. 3 rifles, 4 harpoons, set of fishing knives. All clean, washed thoroughly. But forensics finds microscopic traces. Blood in screw threads attaching stock. Tissue stuck in harpoon tip. By evening 16th, enough evidence for arrest. Stone returns to Hansson's home with warrants. Pete opens door, sees handcuffs in agent's hands. Expression unchanged, stoic calm, not surprise of innocent. Pete Hansson, Eric Hansson, Magnus Hansson. Stone reads names, charges. 12 counts first-degree murder, conspiracy, organized crime. Arrest all 8, cuff without resistance. No one runs, no one shouts innocence, no one demands lawyer. Silence. Eerie, absolute silence. Helicopters evacuate arrested to Kodiak, thence plane to Anchorage. Federal prison, hold till trial. Placed in separate cells, standard for accomplices, prevents story coordination. Interrogations start 17th November. Stone personally leads Pete's. Room 2 by 3 meters, metal table, 2 chairs, camera in corner. Mr. Hansson, evidence irrefutable. Blood yours, victims on your ship, your weapons used. Witness heard your son's name. Attack coordination requires planning. You're the organizer. Pete silent, stares at table. Help yourself. Explain motive. Court will consider cooperation. May reduce sentence. Silence continues. Minutes drag. Stone tries different approaches. Empathy, pressure, logic. Finally Pete speaks. Voice low, even, emotionless. Stole licenses. Law didn't help. Captain protects crew. By murdering 12 people? Sea doesn't forgive theft. Maritime justice older than federal laws. Stone pauses, realizes Pete doesn't see himself as criminal, sees himself as captain fulfilling duty. Protected crew, punished thieves, restored justice. In his logic, hero, not killer. Psychopathy? Or cultural difference so deep bridges of understanding collapsed? In isolated maritime communities, rules different. Captain truly law on ship. Sea truly doesn't forgive weakness. But 12 corpses, not philosophical debate. 12 families destroyed. Children without fathers. Wives, widows. Interrogations of others yield similar results. Eric, silent completely, no word. Magnus, repeats followed captain's orders. Crew obeys. Lars, wavers, shows remorse signs but no details. Nephews Olaf and Thorsten, more talkative. Admit participation but minimize roles. Were on ship, saw some, didn't understand scale till too late. Danes Jens and Canute. Claim feared refusal. Pete threatened throw overboard if betray. Coercion defense, classic strategy. Sven, youngest nephew, 20, breaks first. Third day interrogations, cries, asks, deal. Ready testify against others for reduced charge. Betrayal of captain. In maritime culture, worst crime, worse than murder. But Sven young, scared, doesn't want life in prison. Stone agrees deal. Sven gets 20 years instead of life. In return, full testimony. Case breakthrough. With insider, Hansson's defense crumbles. December 2002. Federal prison Anchorage. Cells cold despite heating. Psychological cold. Awaiting trial that decides rest of life. Pete adapts to incarceration better than others. 60 years at sea taught discipline, routine, isolation. Months on ship and ocean, also kind of prison. Only walls, metal and water, not concrete. Reads Norwegian Bible mother sent. Only personal item allowed in cell. Not particularly religious, but Bible linked to home, to Lofoten, to drowned father. Sons react worse. Eric, eldest, 32, turns fanatic. Has visions, claims sea speaks to him through prison walls. Guards worry, psychotic episode, or feigning for insanity defense. Magnus, middle, 28, deep depression, refuses food several days, force feeding required, arm wound from glass infects, antibiotics late, scar remains. Lars, youngest, 22, cries nights, cells not soundproof. Other inmates here complain to guards. Transfer Lars to psychiatric wing. Nephews and crew in separate block. Jens and Knut demand deportation. Danish citizens not U.S. want trial home. Denied. Crimes in American waters, federal jurisdiction. Sven isolated fully. Cooperating witness status. Protection from revenge, other arrested. 24/7 guard. Separate meals. Fear poisoning. Paranoia, or reasonable precaution in world where betraying captain deserves death. Sven's interrogations continue. Stone squeezes every detail. How attack planned, who what role, who killed whom specifically. Sven tells all. November 9th, meeting on ship. Pete drew plan on nautical chart. Victims' homes, boats, docks, attack sequence. Role assignment, Eric commands shore group, Magnus and Lars with him. Pete stays on ship, coordinates by radio. Nephews and Danes attack boats at sea. Weapons chosen specifically. Rifles, for distance. Harpoons, for silent close kills, no noise attention. Knives, backup for hand-to-hand. Pete instructed, no adult witnesses, kids under 14 live, women not touch. Target specific, male Mendoza family working age. Eliminate competitors, not civilian slaughter. In Pete's twisted logic, this not mass murder. Military operation, elimination of enemy crew. Captain versus captain, sea self-regulates. Sven's testimony gives prosecutor charge structure. Not impulsive violence, premeditated. Not defense in threat moment, planned revenge. First-degree murder, multiple, with aggravators. Defense hires lawyers. For Pete, Marcus Weiss, Alaska criminal legend, won several high-profile fishermen self-defense cases. Strategy, cultural defense. Pete acted per maritime traditions, didn't understand violating American law. Weak defense. Pete in Alaska 20 years, U.S. citizen, new laws. But no alternatives. Facts undeniable, need emotional hook. Separate lawyers for sons. Eric, insanity defense, psychiatric eval ordered. Magnus and Lars, defense under authoritarian father's influence, obedience to captain's order. Danes claim coercion. Pete threatened, they feared lives. No proof threats, but tactic clear. Create reasonable doubt. Nephews Olaf and Thorsten minimize. On ship. Didn't know murder plan. Thought just intimidation. Each tries save self. Crew solidarity. Maritime virtue. Dissolves. Facing life imprisonment. January 2003. Grand jury convenes. Reviews evidence. Physical from ship. Sven's testimony. Esteban's statements. Fingerprints on weapons. Verdict predictable. Indictment all 8. 12 counts first-degree murder each. Plus, conspiracy, organized crime, illegal possession weapons used in crime. Potential punishment, death penalty. Alaska abolished state death penalty in '57, but federal crimes, different jurisdiction. Feds retain death penalty for especially heinous. 12 murders, qualifies. Prosecutor Thomas Evans announces, will seek maximum measure. News explodes Alaska. Media covers frenzy. Headlines screaming. Kodiak Island massacre. Killer captain and death crew. Maritime justice or mass murder. Public opinion splits. Alaskan Mexican community demands max punishment. 12 innocents killed. Scandinavian community divided. Some condemn Pete. Others quietly sympathize. Fishing community whispers. Feds destroyed industry with quotas. Pete cornered by system. No one openly justifies killings. But context understood. Economic desperation. Authorities' failure to help. Geographic isolation. Maritime traditions. Pete becomes symbol. Not hero. Too much blood. Not monster. Motive understandable. Something in between. Tragic figure created by circumstances. Victim's family, widows, children, parents, demand justice. Maria Mendoza gives TV interview, cries, shows photos of Carlos with kids, 4 children orphaned, 12 families destroyed. What justice justifies this? No answer. Only 2 camps shouting at each other across chasm of misunderstanding. Trial set for March, 3 months prep. Both sides gather witnesses, experts, strategies. Karluk tries heal wounds, fails. Village split. Norwegian families versus Mexican. Stop talking. Shop different times. Avoid eye contact. Collective psychological trauma. Counselors come from Anchorage. Conduct group therapy sessions. Helps? Some. But scars so deep don't heal with therapy. Village dies slowly. Population drops. Young flee. Who wants raised kids where massacre happened? Old stay. Where to go? By March, Karluk ghost. 50 residents, half houses abandoned, school closes, not enough kids, store open 3 days week, sea continues tides, indifferent, eternal, doesn't care about human tragedies on shore. March 2003, federal court Anchorage, concrete and glass building, modern cold architecture, inside, courtroom seats 150, filled fully. Journalists, victims' families, curious, activists both sides. Judge Robert McIntyre, 63, 30 years on bench, reputation fair but tough, gray hair, glasses, face expressionless, absolute professional. Jury selected 2 weeks. Difficulty: find people without bias in case that thundered across Alaska. Result: 12 people, 6 men, 6 women, varied ages and backgrounds. 3 have fishing experience, inevitable in Alaska. Defendants enter courtroom. Orange prison jumpsuits, handcuffs and shackles, standard for violence charges. 8 men sit at defense table. Look smaller, weaker than arrest photos. Months incarcerated drain. Pete front, captain even in prison, leader even on dock, back straight, gaze forward, doesn't look at victims' families in front rows. Maria Mendoza sits opposite. Black dress, headscarf, holds Carlos' photo, stares at Pete unblinking. Hatred? Or grief so deep looks like hatred. Prosecutor Thomas Evans, 49, former military prosecutor, heavy crime specialist, opens case with speech calculated to crush defense from first minutes. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what you will hear in this courtroom, a story of cold, calculated mass murder, not in the heat of passion, not in self-defense. Planned slaughter of 12 innocent people, guilty only of working and fishing. Describes night 14th-15th November. Detailed reconstruction per Sven's testimony and Coast Guard data. Shows maps, kill locations, Northern Star route, attack timeline. Defendants claim maritime justice, say captain protected crew, lie, this not defense. Defense, when threat immediate, when choice between your life and attackers. Carlos Mendoza did not attack Pete Hansson, slept on his ship crabbing legally, disputed license under federal investigation. Pete didn't wait for law, took law into own hands, killed Carlos and 11 others, some sleeping, some unarmed. One, 19-year-old boy, first time at sea. Pause for effect. Jurors note, this not cultural difference, not tradition, murder, premeditated, cold-blooded mass, 12 families destroyed, 28 children fatherless. I demand find all defendants guilty and give maximum punishment law allows. Evans sits. Tension in courtroom palpable. Defense responds. Marcus Weiss, Pete's lawyer, stands. 65, criminal veteran, deep theatrical voice. Jurors, prosecutor painted monster picture. I want showman. Pete Hansson, captain 37 years, father of 3, husband 20 years to deceased wife. Immigrant built life honest work, not saint. No one claims sainthood, but not monster. Weiss explains context. Commercial fishing industry collapsing. Federal quotas choke small operators. Corporations buy licenses. Fishermen bankrupt by thousands. Whole villages die. Pete worked whole life. 3 licenses, bought years' savings. Retirement plan, inheritance to sons, family future. Fall 2002 licenses disappear. Stolen or system error? Unclear. Pete turned to authorities. Sheriff said, federal jurisdiction. Fed said, wait 6-8 weeks. But crab season ends 2 weeks. Wait means lose year income. Bank doesn't wait. Family doesn't eat bureaucrats' promises. Weiss approaches jurors, looks each in eyes. Not justifying murder, law broken, fact, but understand desperation that drove man to edge when system failed, when authorities too far to help, when ocean only judge left. Pete acted protecting only thing he had. Right or not, you decide. But man, not monster. Weak legally, but emotionally, resonates. Several jurors nod faintly. Judge McIntyre calls first prosecution witness. Esteban Mendoza, now 16, looks younger. Trauma ages soul but body stays young. Evans leads questioning gently. Esteban describes night, slept at uncle's house, woke to screams, hid in closet, heard killings, saw one attacker's face through door crack. Can you identify? Esteban looks at defendant's table, shakes, points at Eric Hansson. Him, opened closet door, looked at me, thought he'd kill, then closed door, left. Why spared? Doesn't know. Mercy? Or calculation? Child no threat? Defense cross-examines. Eric's lawyer tries discredit. Was scared, dark, saw poorly, sure identified correctly. Esteban firm. Saw face, remembered, it's him. Next witness, Maria Mendoza, cries on stand, describes finding bodies. Horror discovering husband killed, brothers dead, home turned slaughterhouse. Evans. Did you know of your husband's conflict with Pete Hansson? Yes, Carlos said Pete accuses of license theft, but Carlos didn't steal. Bought from broker in Anchorage, showed documents. Did Carlos ever threaten Pete? Never. Wanted resolved peacefully, waited feds sort out. Defense cross-examines. Maybe Carlos didn't tell wife everything? Maybe had dealings she didn't know? Maria offended. Husband 20 years, knew everything, he not thief. First trial day ends, emotions high both sides. Media covers greedily, dramatic headlines. Trial lasts 3 months, 70 witnesses, thousands pages evidence. Battle not just legal, philosophical. Where boundary between justice and revenge? What's more important, law or survival? Is there justification for mass murder when system failed? Answers will be found. Or not. April 2003. 4th trial week. Courtroom atmosphere shifts when Sven Hansson enters witness stand. Youngest nephew, traitor in family eyes, savior in prosecution eyes. 20, looks 17, thin, pale, eyes avoid contact with other defendants. Knows what doing, destroys crew's last hope for acquittal. Maritime sin unforgivable. But alternative, life in prison. Evans starts gently, establishes background. Sven grew up Hansson family, worked Northern Star from 16, respected Uncle Pete like second father, loyalty deep, betrayal hard. Sven, tell about November 9th, 2002 meeting on ship. Sven shakes, starts quiet, judge asks speak louder. Uncle Pete gathered all, said Mendoza stole licenses, feds not helping, law too slow. We'll lose everything if not act. What did Uncle suggest? Pause. Long. Sven looks down. Said we'll go for licenses, take back by force. If Mendoza resist, eliminate. Eliminate. His words? Yes. Said it's sea captain is law. Thieves punish death. Viking tradition. If land laws don't work, apply sea ones. Did anyone object? Magnus asked, what if we kill? Uncle Pete said not murder, execution, justice restored. Courtroom freezes. Jurors note furiously. This key, direct evidence of premeditation, not impulsive action, planned attack. Evans continues, planning details, maps, role assignment, weapon choice. Sven tells all, each detail more horrifying than last. How Pete instructed kill quietly, harpoons for silence, how Eric practiced knife throwing at target on deck, how Magnus sharpened blades to razor. Did you participate in killings? Was on ship, didn't kill personally, held radio position, coordinated comms between groups. So accomplice, accessory. Yes. Voice barely audible. Defense starts cross. Pete's lawyer Marcus Weiss attacks aggressively. Strategy discredit witness. Sven, you got deal from prosecution? Yes. 20 years instead life. Significant reduction. Yes. Aren't you interested, say what prosecutor wants here? Get lighter sentence for testimony? Sven hesitates. Telling truth. Truth or version securing deal? Betrayed family, betrayed captain. What guarantees not betraying truth? Harsh blow, juror's note. Sven, no immediate answer. Evans objects. Your Honor, defense intimidating witness. Judge McIntyre. Overruled. Witness credibility question relevant. Continue. Weiss presses. How many times met prosecutor before testimony? Many. 20, 30 times. Rehearsed what say? Prepared, not rehearsed. Difference exists? Sven confused. Young, inexperienced in court games. Weiss seasoned predator, but damage done. Jurors heard planning details, even if Sven motivated by deal. Details too specific to invent. Match physical evidence, Esteban's testimony, forensics from ship. Next prosecution witness, FBI Special Agent Jennifer Stone, describes investigation, evidence find, interrogations. Professional, cool, irrefutable. Agent Stone, in your experience, this organized or impulsive crime? Highly organized, multiple locations attacked coordinated, minimal witnesses, evidence partially destroyed, ship washed, weapons cleaned, planning obvious. Compare to other mass killings you investigated? Most impulsive, emotional explosion, chaos, multiple errors. This resembles military op. Target specific, attack synchronized, retreat organized. Defense tries dispute. Agent Stone, possible defendants acted desperation, cornered economically. Desperation doesn't plan attack 5 days ahead. Desperation doesn't methodically eliminate 12 targets. Desperation, impulsive. This, calculated. Next week, defense witnesses. Strategy show Pete as good man broken by system. Karluk neighbors. Pete helped repair boats free. Shared catch when others bad season. Rescued drowning fisherman in 97 storm. Risked own life. Lutheran church pastor, Pete attended occasionally, donated community programs. Quiet, respectful, devoted family man. Maritime labor psychologist, expert on fishing community psychology. Testifies on cultural differences, on isolated ships captain absolute authority, traditions old as seafaring, conflicts resolved within crew, not through land authorities. Doctor, in maritime culture, how theft perceived. Heaviest crime. On ship, especially historically, theft supplies or equipment threatens all survival. Punishment harsh, exile, sometimes death. Could Pete Hansson believe acting justly? In maritime culture framework, possible. Not legally justifies, but explains mentality. Evans cross-examines. Doctor, does maritime culture exempt from U.S. law? No. Pete Hansson, U.S. citizen 20 years, new laws? Assume yes. So chose ignore, not cultural misunderstanding, conscious violation. Expert can't refute. May, defense puts Pete on stand. Risky, prosecutor can destroy cross-exam, but Weiss believes personal appeal to jurors last chance. Pete enters stand. 61. Prison months aged, hair fully gray, face gaunt but back straight, captain's pride unbroken. Weiss. Mr. Hansson, tell jurors why acted that night. Pete silent minute, then speaks, voice even, emotionless. 37 years at sea, built ship, crew, family, licenses bought honest work, stolen, sheriff no help, feds dawdled, bank demanded payment, crew starved, captain protects crew, no choice. Regret deaths? Pause, most important in trial. Proud? No. Regret necessary? No. Captain does required. Mistake. Catastrophic. Jurors note, no remorse, even facing possible death penalty. Evans cross-examines, methodically dismantles Pete's logic. Mr. Hansson, did Carlos Mendoza pose immediate threat your life? Stole crew's livelihood. Attacked physically? No. Threatened violence. Laughter threat. Mockery. Killed for mockery. For theft. Federal investigation could prove he didn't steal. Too slow. So killed because law not fast enough? Pete, no answer. 12 dead because didn't want weight? Pete's silence louder any response. Jurors see. Coldness calculation, total lack remorse. Defense crumbles. Pete's testimony seals verdict. June 2003. Closing arguments. Evans sums. Premeditation proven. No remorse. Threat to society. Demands max punishment. Weiss last try. Pete man not monster. System failed. Desperation drove to edge. Asks min punishment law allows. Knows chances zero but obligated try. Jurors deliberate. 3 days. 72 hours. Tense wait. Karluk, Anchorage, all Alaska freezes. June 23rd. Jurors return. Verdict read by foreman. Woman 50, former teacher, serious, tired. On count first-degree murder, Carlos Mendoza, guilty. On count murder, Diego Mendoza, guilty. 12 times. 12, guilty. Pete no reaction. Sits still. Sons beside cry. Eric silently. Magnus and Lars sobbing. Sentencing week later. Judge McIntyre reads seriously, slowly. Pete Hansson, found guilty 12 first-degree murders, multiple aggravators, premeditation, coordination, no remorse. Sentenced to life imprisonment without parole, 12 consecutive terms. Serve in federal maximum security prison. Death penalty not applied. Prosecutor withdrew demand last moment. Reason. Public pressure. Part Alaska saw Pete tragic figure not deserving death. Sons get similar sentences. Eric, life without parole. Magnus, life. Lars, life with review, possible 30 years, youth and remorse signs considered. Nephews Olaf and Thorsten, 25 years each. Young, lesser role, partial cooperation. Danes Jens and Knut, 20 years with deportation after release. Foreign citizens, coercion partially proven. Sven, per deal 13 years, reduced from 20 full cooperation. Out 2015, sentences final. Appeals filed but denied. By August, all 8 transferred permanent prisons, different states. Separation prevents escape or riot coordination. Pete and USP Florence Admax, Colorado, Supermax, called Alcatraz of Rockies. Cell 7 by 12 feet, isolation 23 hours, 1 hour exercise in concrete cage open air, meals through slot, talks through phone, ocean 3,000 miles away. First years. Pete mostly silent. Guards say, eerie inmate, not aggressive but dead inside. Eyes look through people like through fog. Follows orders mechanically. Eats, sleeps, breathes, doesn't live. Reads Norwegian Bible daily, not religious ever, but book linked to past, to father, to sea. Favorite passage, Jonah and whale. Man swallowed by ocean, 3 days in dark, returned to shore. Pete never returns. Other inmates avoid him. Even in Supermax, where terrorists and serial killers sit, Pete eerie legend, mass killer using harpoons, captain turned crew killers, man without remorse. 2008, prison psychologist record session with Pete, published after death, asks about remorse. Did what captain must, protected crew from thieves, sea doesn't forgive weakness, land law not apply to sea laws. Psychologist presses, killed 12 innocents, not innocent, stole my son's future. At sea who steals your compass in storm, killer. Carlos stole my family's compass. Logic twisted beyond recognition. Psychologist diagnoses, not clinical psychopathy, cultural deviation so deep understanding bridges destroyed. Physically, Pete deteriorates. Arthritis from decades cold water worsens without movement. By 2015, needs walker. Vision fails from natural light lack. By 70, nearly blind, wheelchair constant. 2020, prison hospital. Heart failure progresses. Offer compassionate release. Dying, no threat. Pete refuses. Wants die captain. Not pitiful old man free. March 2021. Heart stops in sleep. 70 years. 19 served of infinity. Per will. Cremation, ashes to Bering Sea. Coast Guard allows after petition. Captain's last voyage home. Ocean takes him back. Pete's sons never see freedom. Eric dies 2014, 41, prison fight over religion. Preached see true God. Other inmate offended, knife to heart, dies instantly. Buried prison cemetery number instead name. Magnus alive 2025, 50, works prison library. Only joy, sea books. Reads Melville Conrad Hemingway. Letters to relatives describe physical longing for water. Every night dream ocean. Wake in cell, cry. Lars doesn't endure. Bipolar disorder develops by 2010. Psychiatric unit, meds, therapy. Nothing helps. 2019, overdose, 37. Intentional or accidental? Family believes intentional. C called, he answered only way available. Nephews released. Olaf freed 2020 after 18 years. Live Seattle, mechanic. Avoids ocean completely. Can't look at water without memories. Victims' faces, blood on deck, drowning screams. Thorsten released 2021. Doesn't adapt. Land alien after 2 decades concrete cage. Year later, suicide. Hanged in apartment. Note, can't live on land. Belong to sea, but sea doesn't want me. Danes Jens and Knut deported Denmark after release. Jens lives Copenhagen. Docker, never speaks past. Colleagues don't know he participated in Alaska Massacre. Secret buried deeper ocean trench. Knut disappears after deportation. Family says went merchant ship. No contact years. Possibly dead. Possibly hiding. Sea swallows and doesn't return. Sven, traitor, released 2015 after 13 years. Witness protection, new name, new identity. Anonymous podcast interview, 2022. Every night see faces. Diego screaming, betrayed family for deal, but also killed innocents. Were they innocent? Did they steal licenses? Don't know. Pray, but ocean doesn't answer. Praying captains who betrayed crew cursed forever. Live somewhere, America. Alone. Fears revenge from victims' relatives and Hansson family. Constant paranoia. Survival, not life. Special Agent Stone retires 2019. Podcast interview 2022. Legally, Pete mass murderer. Morally, captain cornered by failed system. Law black-white. Morality gray like fog over Bering Sea. 20 years live with contradiction. What would I do if stole my livelihood and law couldn't help fast enough? Judge McIntyre, before retirement. Applied law as oath requires. But knights look at ocean and think. Feds destroyed independent fishing with quotas. Corporations stole way of life. Mendoza stole licenses from desperation. Hansson responded only way he knew. Who real criminal? Story teaches contradictory lessons. Obvious. Don't steal from captain on survival edge. Carlos made catastrophic decision. But deeper. What happens when economic systems collapse? When government regulations unintentionally destroy small operators? When law enforcement too far to help timely? When captain law on ship culture so rooted land jurisprudence illegitimate? Pete definitely killer. Eliminated 12 with planning, many sleeping without trial. Transformed sons into killers, destroyed their lives, but also desperate captain cornered by systemic failures? Yes, too. Both truths coexist. Most disturbing part, makes ask, what would we do? If stole 30 years labor livelihood, if police 60 miles across dangerous waters, if bureaucracy takes months when months to bankruptcy? Where line between protecting own and becoming monster? Or desperation erases line completely? No satisfying answers. Only harsh truth. Violence begets violence. Broken economies create desperate people. Protection indistinguishable from revenge. Revenge didn't return licenses. FBI never found them. Maybe Mendoza didn't steal at all. Didn't restore income. Ship confiscated. Family destroyed. Pete eliminated 12, but not desperation. Protected captain's honor, but lost sailor's soul. 23 years passed. Coastal Alaska not healed. Adapted to new reality dying industry. Hansson home demolished. Lot empty. Mendoza docks rot. Karluk population down to 40. Young flee, old remember. No memorial. No plaque explaining here happened Alaska's largest fisherman massacre. Village lives on, covering scars with normalcy. Kids play at docks where people died. Life continues despite all. Pete's story, no heroes. Captain loved crew more than freedom. 12 neighbors possibly stole, possibly not. System failed all levels. Feds destroyed independent fishing. Corporations made survival impossible. Geography made justice distant. Outcome for Pete, 19 years to death. Wife died alcoholism. Sons dead or life imprisoned. Grandchildren not knowing him. Legacy blood in cold water. That's what maritime justice bought. But listen closely. This story not how to live manual. Warning how not to. Pete Hansson, not hero. Example how desperation turns man-killer. 12 families destroyed. Kids grew without fathers. Revenge didn't solve problem, only created more pain. Right way? Wait law. Seek help. Turn to community. Fight through system even when system's slow. Violence never answer. Never. Pete cornered but choice to kill his, and that choice destroyed all around, including himself. Story not about licenses or feuds, about choices we make when life pushes to edge, about revenge not equaling justice, about price of violence paid by generations. If this story made you think about justice, systemic failures, cost of desperation, give a like, subscribe to channel. More stories here challenging understanding right and wrong. And now, question for you. Where boundary between protecting own and becoming monster? What would you do in Pete's place? Wait law or act self? Waiting your thoughts in comments. C doesn't forgive, C doesn't forget. And sometimes most dangerous people, not born evil, but driven where only choice between die quietly or take yours with blood. Until next time.